Once upon a time, in the land of Ekafo, there lived a very wealthy man called Obidike. Obidike has the largest and the biggest farmland and crops in the village. Even the villagers do buy crops from him. He had a happy family, a beautiful wife, and a well-behaved daughter called Adugo, who he loved so dearly. His wife, Oma, was pregnant with their second baby. Some months later, Oma went into labor. Oma had a very hard labor, which took her life and the life of their baby. This took a toll on Obidike and his daughter Adugo. Obidike mourned his wife for years. After a few years of mourning his wife, the community convinced him to marry another wife, since he has no heir to inherit all his properties and wealth. And Adugo, his daughter, is also a girl who needs a mother figure in her life and will also marry out from her father's house one day. One day, Obidike was on his way to his farm. He met one beautiful woman. He stopped her and asked her for her name and where she came from. The woman replied him,
"My name is Nena. I'm from the neighboring village. I'm a widow. I also have a beautiful daughter called Olama. My husband's family threw me out of his house because I couldn't give him a son."
Obidike took pity on her and invited her over to his house. Few months later, Obidike married her and brought her and her daughter into his home, not knowing that the woman is evil and has been pretending all along. Obidike treated Nena and her daughter Olama well, but still loved his daughter Adugo more. This made Nena angry and jealous. Even when Adugo will try to please her stepmother, she will always end up on her bad side. Nena got tired of the marriage as usual and wanted to take Obidike out of the picture and inherit his wealth. She also refused getting pregnant for Obidike too. She began to poison his meal daily to weaken him. She also started selling his farmland one by one with the disguise that she is helping him to reduce the farm work, and since he is weak, and that she uses the money for his treatment. Meanwhile, Nena knew that once Obidike dies, she will be married off to one of the king's men, and since she didn't give him a son, she won't be able to inherit any property. That was why she came up with the plan of selling the lands. When she was done selling his lands and gaining the favor of the king's men as a caring wife, she gave him the final dose of the poison and Obidike died. Nena pretended to mourn the death of her husband for some time. One day, Nena decided to leave the village. The only property left was his house and his daughter Adugo. Nena also sold Obidike's house and lied to the king's men that she is going back to her father's house. That it is in their tradition that once a woman's husband dies, that she is to return to her father's compound. And they all let her go. Nena took her daughter and moved to a neighboring village, taking Adugo with them to make her look like a saint. She lied to the villagers that she ran away with her daughters because they were forced to be buried with the dead husband, as tradition demands. They all pitied her and gave her a house to live in. While they lived in the new village, Nena maltreated Adugo so much. She worked her to death and still maintained a good appearance to the public. Adugo was made to sleep on a dirty and hard floor. She was also made to wake up at midnight to clean the house, wash the dishes, make their food, and also wash their clothes. She would still run to the stream every day to fetch water and fill up the empty pots in the house. She will also go to the farm to harvest enough crops and sell at the markets. And she also makes sure she sells off the crops before coming back home to avoid Nena's anger. She is only allowed to eat once a day, and the food she eats is the leftovers from her stepmother and sister. Adugo did all the works without complaining, believing that all will be well one day. She believed that she also owed her stepmother for taking her in instead of selling her as a slave. She never for once thought of running away or harming them. One day, Adugo went to the stream to fetch water. While she was fetching water, she heard the sound of a flute playing. She loved the music that came from it. So she went to find where the sound was coming from. She searched and searched, then she later saw an old woman sitting beside a river, playing the flute. She also saw a heavy bag beside the old woman. Adugo started dancing to the music, and it made her remember her parents and the love they showed her when they were alive. This made her start shedding tears and wish she could find love and happiness again. The old woman noticed her and called the attention of Adugo, who was still dancing to the music. The old woman said to her,
"My daughter, I see you like the music from my flute."
Adugo nodded shyly. Then the old woman laughed and then asked Adugo to help her carry her bag home. At first, Adugo was reluctant, but she could not imagine the old woman carrying such a heavy bag. So she left her pot under the tree and helped her. When they got to the old woman's hut, she offered to pay Adugo for the help, but Adugo refused. So she later showed Adugo a collection of flutes, one made of gold, another made of silver, and one made of fine wood, and another made of cowries. Adugo was amazed at the sight and even more amazed when the old woman told her that they each had magic in them. The old woman also told her that whenever she plays the flute with a pure heart, the flute will read her heart and grant her wish. It will also grant her wealth and comfort, but cannot bring back the dead. It can also be played by her alone, and she should not use it to cast spells or curses. And any day she, Adugo, dies as the owner of the flute will stop working. Adugo was so happy. She picked the wooden flute, thanked the woman, and ran home happily to show her stepmother, forgetting her pot at the stream. When she got home, her stepmother beat her mercilessly for taking so long at the stream and coming back without her pot of water. After the beating, she apologized to her stepmother and told her about the flute and what the old woman said about it. She then played it in the presence of her stepmother and sister. Immediately, the bruises on her body from the beating disappeared. But the stepmother was not impressed, so she played it again, and this time a big sack of cowries appeared. Seeing this, Nena took the flute from her and tried playing it, but no sound came from it. In anger, she tried to break the flute, but the flute did not break. So she threw it outside the house and condemned it as evil, and forbid Adugo from entering her house with the flute again. Adugo was wandering around the bush path leading to the stream, and she was also playing her flute along. The sound attracted the prince, who was at the stream. He located Adugo. Immediately, the prince saw Adugo. He fell in love with her, and so did Adugo too. Adugo narrated everything she has been through in her life to the prince. The prince took pity on her and took her home to show his father. When the prince brought Adugo to the palace, everyone accepted her and welcomed her with open hearts. Then the prince got married to Adugo immediately. Adugo also told them about the flutes and also played it for them, and the flutes brought wealth, riches, and comfort to their lives. When Nena heard of this, she was so angry that she sent her daughter to the stream to fetch water, saying,
"Do not return home until you see an old woman playing the flute. Then you collect yours from her."
Olamma went to the stream to fetch water for several days and stayed till nightfall waiting for the old woman. When she started losing hope, her mother would threaten to sell her out to a rich old man if she did not find the old woman. Olamma went to the stream one day and she heard the sound of the flute. She went to find it and she saw an old woman playing it. She felt so happy. Without waiting for the old woman to finish playing, she interrupted her and offered to help her carry her load home. On their way to the old woman's house, Olamma complained bitterly of how heavy the bag is. When they finally got to her house, the old woman asked her to pick a flute. As expected, she picked the golden flute. Then the old woman told her this.
"This flute will give whoever that plays it what they deserve, and it will only stop working when the flute player is humbled."
Olamma was too excited to listen to her. She ran home and showed it to her mother, who hugged her and told her how much she loved her. Then she took it from her daughter and played it. But instead of wealth, which was in her greedy heart when she played it to appear, but rather spirits in form of masquerade appeared and began to flog her along with her daughter. Every time the spirit flogged them, it would command, confess. When they could no longer take the beating, they ran out into the village square shouting, but the masquerade followed them, flogging them and commanding them to confess. They ran into the king's palace screaming. The whole villagers gathered around to see what was happening. Even the king, the queen, the prince and Adugo, who is now the princess, came out to see what was happening. Nena shouted,
I will confess. I will confess. I will confess. I will confess.
The beating stopped, but the spirit did not disappear just in case she lies. Nena started confessing on how she poisoned her first husband to acquire his wealth and ran away with her daughter, and went to another village, which is Adugo's village, and heard of a widower who was so rich, which is Obidike. She planned to marry him and lied to him also. She wormed her way into his house and heart and became his wife. And she also confessed how she poisoned Adugo's father slowly till he died, and how she sold everything he had and ran away from the village and came to this village. She also confessed to maltreating Adugo, hoping she would die from the maltreatment. When she was done confessing, the spirit vanished, leaving her to face the angry villagers who wanted justice for Adugo, their new princess. Nena begged for forgiveness, but the people offered to stone her to death. The king ordered that Nena should be buried alive and left to die in the evil forest, and word should be sent to Adugo's village explaining what happened. As for Olamma, Adugo had mercy on her and took her in as one of the palace maids, where she was still maltreated by the senior maids behind Adugo's back. Adugo lived happily ever after. The end. Was the story interesting and educative? If so, tell us what you learned in the comment section. Please do not forget to subscribe and put on your notification button for more new stories.